So we're in 2026, and a successful firm isn't measured on the amount you are billing, it's the way you are leading. So with that, I would like to introduce Mahmood from Brilliant Beyond Belief to explain to you how he's working with leading professional firms in this space. Mahmood.
Awesome, thank you. So firstly, thank you for having me here. The journey is quite different. So my background is nothing to do with what we're doing right now. I was a dentist. I graduated in 2003, and I practiced dentistry for 14 years. I had a few practices. One of the places I used to work at a lot was at the bottom of 1CP at the bottom of Barclays in Canary Wharf, and within Harley Street, within London. And a lot of my early clients were senior execs, partners of professional services firms, and I really got to understand what goes on inside their world. When you have someone on your chair for an hour, and a lot of that is talking, because at that level, a lot of that is building relationships. So people open up to you, they tell you about what's going on in their organization, what they're doing, what they're working on, but really what's going on behind the scene. So everyone comes in and they've got a lot of pressure. And what I started learning early on is, how do people start working under pressure? What are the problems they face? And so a lot of conversations early on started where there were just conversations, but I felt I was able to help these people in a certain way. Fast forward 14 years, got really bored of the profession, 14 years into it, I had a big life moment where my father passed away and made a move to jump out of the profession. And what I started doing then is I started working a lot one-to-one with these individuals, the partners, senior execs, board members, C-suite, started working one-on-one with them. From there, what happened is that business grew really, really well. And in 2020, when lockdown happened, we built everything online. And then the organization was about helping partners to be able to unlock potential. Senior leaders, senior execs had to unlock potential. So that grew really, really well over lockdown, right? Really, really well. Then when the world opened up, we started running events and all of that as well. And then about 2.5, 3 years ago, some of the execs we were working with started asking us to come and work with their teams, because they said, look, you've unlocked so much in us. Is it possible for you to come and work with our teams? And so that's where the organization is right now. So I'm the founder, CEO, and in essence, what we do is we work with organizations to be able to help build high-performing teams at leadership level. So to be able to get people to work really, really well under pressure, how to be able to flourish under pressure, and how to be able to build leadership teams which are now going to be kind of the next 10, 20 years of what organizations look like.
And that long-term planning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's the common trend in working with these types of firms at the moment? What's the common trend that you're seeing?
So, great question. The common trend that we're seeing is, I kind of call it old leadership and new leadership. So old leadership was, if you look at partners, for example, right? Partner went from leader to partner because they were very, very, very good at the knowledge and at kind of the doing, the actual technical side. They're very, very good. So they did the technical bit. They did all the work themselves, made the decisions themselves. And that's how everything happened. It was solely about them. And also they got rewarded the more they did. So billable hours, things like that. The more work you did, the more you got paid. So we look at that kind of the old leadership, because what people are now realizing is they weren't building the bench for the future. They weren't incentivizing future partners, and younger partners have come in and they're not really great at doing the things that the rainmakers were. So new leadership's really about systems, processes, and actually building high-performing teams, building a culture within the organization where I feel the work isn't dependent on you anymore, but you are the conduit, you are the person who can build that team and allow the work to come in and allow the work to grow without it having to be reliant on you. And it's no longer about how many hours that you do, but it's about creating that space where the team around you can flourish and they can be able to do that work. They're empowered to do that, and you've got that culture. So that's what we look at when it comes to old leadership versus new leadership.
And in terms of sort of more recent developments, since obviously remote work, and you touched on it earlier, since COVID, is there any accelerating factors that you've seen since, say, that period of time, or generational? What's the, how do I say it? Are there more recent kind of developments in company culture that you have to bridge in order to develop said skill sets of leaders in the business?
I really like that question. The bit about lockdown, what I feel lockdown did is it speeded up time in the way where things maybe which would have come up 10 years after, it happened within a space of 2 years. What I mean by that is when you look at professional services firms, when you look at senior partners, the rainmakers, like the rainmakers, the reason that they're called the rainmakers is they make the rain, right? They've got these big black books that over time they've really spent time nurturing relationships, building relationships, and then bringing in work, not just from those people, but from the networks of those people, right? Now, they learned it either one of two ways. They were either forced to learn it because they had to, or they learned it because they wanted to. But within partners, generally, it's not because they've wanted to, but normally you're put in a situation and you've got to make it work. And when our back's against the wall, we don't have another option. We actually make it work. So they've got these qualities in them which allow them to be rainmakers, but you can't see how great you are yourself. So you've got this big black book and you're doing what you do. And then the younger directors are becoming partners, or the younger partners come in and they're not very good at that anymore. Number one, because they haven't been forced to be in that position. And number two, during times like lockdown, everything was remote working at home, like very, very small amount of contact you had with people. But one of the biggest things that a partner needs to be able to do is to be able to have relationships and build a pipeline, right?
Yep.
So it's that kind of hunter mentality. So one of the biggest things which we're finding right now is that you've got your senior partners, the rainmakers, who are so good at what they do, and you've got the younger partners or who want to be the partners, but there's this big gap.
Or cavity.
Yeah.
Pardon the dental pun.
yeah, cavity. I like that. Yeah, and what'll happen, I see that over the course of the next 5-7 years, there's going to be a big black hole when it comes to pipeline. We've recently published a white paper called The Hunter's Edge, and what that looked at is how to be able to create hunters within an organization, to be able to create partners who can be like those rainmakers. And it's not enough to tell someone, look, go out there and go to more networking meetings. It doesn't work. It's not about that. It's like, how do you break those things down? How do you understand what's going on in there? Because when people became partners, they became partners really because of their technical skills.
Yep.
Yeah, not because of their people skills or because of their pipeline building skills. It's not about that. So it's a whole new concept around what we have to deliver to people, we have to teach people. So so that's what I feel lockdown did. It kind of sped time up in that way. So what we're seeing right now would have probably seen a lot later on.
Yeah. Accelerated that gap. I think the gap was there. I think generationally, there's a bit of a gap as well through sort of the younger generation and expectations. There's also a loyalty kind of difference. People aren't in the same firm for as long as they were, historically. They jump ship a lot. No, it's interesting to see since COVID, because you pick up, if you are in an office together as a unit, as a team, you build that culture, but not only are you building the business's culture, but you're, as an individual within that business, you're not sharpening those skills simply by the osmosis effect, and you're not in that environment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I also agree in terms of networking. You can be in the environment, but if you haven't got the sharpened skills and kind of mindset to ultimately win business, then you're just in the space for the sake of being in the space, but you're not going to win anything. Yeah.
So for example, when you go to a networking meeting, you see there are some people who people gravitate towards. They want to be around you, and sometimes it's because of the logo you have. But many mid-tier firms, those logos aren't that attractive. Like, it's not the PwC, it's not the EY, it's not the Deloittes, right? But when you have that, people want to come and speak to you because they know you're part of those big four. But
by association.
But when you're the mid-tier firm, what really needs to stand out is like, the first 8 seconds in which you open your mouth. Do you know, people normally give you a mic at networking meeting, and the first thing somebody's going to go, oh, hi, my name. You've lost 4 seconds already.
Yep.
But you can stand up with that mic, and the first thing which comes out of your mouth, people are like, wow, that energy, right? I want to be around you. And and it's that. And it's building partners, future partners, to be able to be like that, where you are like, if you're a big planet, everything attracts to us like gravity, right? You've got that center of gravity in you where everyone wants to be around you.
And what, just as a sort of glimpse into how you work with firms in order to unlock their team's kind of abilities in that arena, just touch on how you work with firms right now and have done historically to kind of bring that out.
So what we know is that there's something called Yerke-Dodson law, the Yerke-Dodson law. What that shows is that with any team, when they undergo any pressure, so when they're scaling, when private equity comes in, anything like that, right? Initially, pressure increases performance, right? Up to a point which is called the critical point. And if that point's not managed, what happens is the brain's fear center lights up and it says, whoa, 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 you're going too fast, you're doing too many new things, stay within your comfort zone. And what happens is performance falls off a cliff very, very quickly. At that point, the confidence of the team goes down as well. And then they re-go through that cycle, but with lower confidence. Each time they go through the cycle, they're getting smaller.
They get a knock and a knock and a knock.
Knock. So what we're looking at is that critical point. So we're seeing how can we help firms to be able to, when pressure hits, when scale is there, how to be able to get people to flourish, how to be able to make sure that certain parts of the mind are working different ways, you're looking at things in different ways, and we can give you the ability to be able to go out there and flourish under pressure. So when we talk about zones, there's kind of 3 zones of life. There's your comfort zone, there's your stretch zone, there's your growth zone. So within the comfort zone, that's where most people tend to operate. It's comfortable, but people aren't really challenged within there. And the moment you start stepping out of that zone by doing something new, so for example, say private equity comes in. Now, the challenges are bigger in the way that now they need to see bigger returns, right? They have to. So what happens is you get pushed out of your comfort zone because now you need to bring in more work. So maybe you turn up to a networking meeting you've never been to before, and all of a sudden your fear centers light up. So now you're getting outside of your comfort zone inside the stretch zone. That stretch zone is that place which people call, it's called the proximal zone of development. It's called region beta. And what that place is if that place isn't managed, you very, very quickly lose confidence and it's just really hard to be able to do anything because your fear centers of your brain are lighting up. So what we look at, if we can keep your confidence around 20% above your confidence. So your confidence above your competence, right? So your confidence is always above your competence. What that means is teaching you how to be able to do things you haven't done before, but in a very comfortable environment. So we're stretching you, but we're not stretching you too much. So for example, when you go into that networking meeting, how do you make the first 8 seconds amazing? Right? Like when you're meeting people, how can you
impact?
How can you close that trust gap with people very quickly? How do you be able to delegate well, focus well, prioritize well, build teams well, build time, like all of that. So when we work with companies, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at where are you right now, where do you want to get to? How can we really bridge that gap for the next 20 years? Because things are going to change later on as well. But right now, how do we create that environment where it's not dependent on you, but it's a teaming effect of everyone around you?
Yeah, I think delegation is a key one, and ultimately for partners and senior leadership to have the confidence in the team to delegate such tasks. I know when I've been to a previous event of yours, you touched on some elements around that delegation piece. Be keen to hear on here some more around how you kind of guide in terms of delegation.
Okay, brilliant. So the way we look at things like that is we've looked at all of the models out there in the world when it comes to how to build a team, right? How to be able to really manage and build teams well. And a lot of the models out there are pretty complicated. And if something's complicated, you're not going to use it. And if you don't use it, nothing's going to work, right? So we're like, what if we could make everything really, really, really simple, like properly simple? Because if it's simple, you'll use it. And if it starts working, you use it more and more. And if you use it more and more, it'll be your habit. And if it's habit, that becomes a cadence. And if everyone within the organization can do the same, that becomes a rhythm of the organization. So when it comes to delegation, for example, we've got a very, very, very simple model that we look at. And we look at, if you looked at the tasks that you have, and what if we grouped it into 3 tasks? You've got, for example, £10 tasks, you've got £100 tasks, and you've got £1,000 tasks. And the difference is a £1,000 task is something which only you can do, which is something which fits your role perfectly, and something which if only you do, it'll move the needle of the business the most, financially or impact-wise. That becomes a £1,000 task, okay? Now, your role is to only do £1,000 tasks. Like, that's it. And then now, imagine if you look at your massive to-do list, because we all have massive to-do lists, right? And if you started saying, is that 10, 100,000? Now, all of a sudden, you've got a very different lens, because a 10 or £100 task, you can delegate automate, eliminate, right? But the £1,000 task is a thing which you should be doing. So imagine if for the next 2 weeks, so whenever we walk into any organization, one of the things that we say is let's keep an audit for 2 weeks, right? Everyone's great on audits, right? Let's keep an audit. Every task that you do in a book, just write it down. From going to the gym to making a phone call to having a client meal, whatever it may be, write it down. And next to there, just write 10, 100,000. That's it. At the end of the week, get 2 pens, a red pen and a green pen, and everything which is 1,000, put it in green. Everything which is 10 or 100, put in red. All of a sudden now, you visually can see where your time's going. Mm-hmm. Now, normally we tend to do the things which are easier and we push away the things which are harder. Yep. Generally, that's how we work, right? Fine. But what a £1,000 task is normally the harder task. So there's this lovely quote I like that, the magic is in the thing we're avoiding, right? The hardest thing to do is the thing that you need to do the most, which we're avoiding doing. And what we find is we're doing a lot of red tasks and not many green. And imagine if we had that lens, for anyone who's listening to this from today, imagine if you ask yourself that 10, 100,000. And maybe you don't have anyone right now who can do your 10 or 100, because your 10 or 100 pound task is someone else's £1,000 task. Right. So, for example, my EA's role is to book my meetings. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a £10 task for me or a £100 task for me, but it's a £1,000 task. That's what that's what Amy's there for. But for me, if I do that, it's taking time away from the things I should be doing. And when I understand that in my mind, there's a battery, a decision battery every day, and every little thing I do, do you know when you look at your phone and you say, shall I lock it or shall I unlock it? Shall I swipe that email away or shall I read it? That's a decision, like every tiny thing. And every tiny decision I make is taking that battery down. So I want to keep my battery there for the decisions which are the most important to me. That's why when you look at like super uber successful people, like for example, when Zucks previously, that's a big thing. Why do you wear t-shirts all the time? He goes, look, I've got 20 of the same t-shirts. I don't think about what I'm going to wear every day.
Yeah, even a simple decision like that.
Yeah, food, clothes, like it's just done. Like you wear the same shirt, on the same one, but you have 10 of the same shirts. Yep. But you don't have to think about it every day. It's just like, okay, done. Yeah. And it's that, and how to be able to preserve your mental capability, your mental capacity to make sure that you can perform your best.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at it. I obviously, since we were speaking originally, it's one that I look at and I like to see more in the green from my own kind of cut out of time. And I think it's a key. Unless you step back and look at it, you can just end up in the run of things without actually setting back, looking at those tasks, because you're busy, you're in it, and you just need to sometimes reflect on your day, your week, your month, and see how valuable that time period is. Given the shift in leadership, what patterns are you seeing in the professional firms that you're working with?
So in the firms that we're working with, firms who really now want to equip themselves for what a 2026 world and beyond is going to look like, they're understanding it's not about the individual anymore, but it's about the team. What I mean by that is there's certain things, or when you look at an individual, their capabilities are going to be the guardrails or even the frame of where anyone can get. So we need to be able to push out of there. So one thing that we look at is when we have a look at any partner, a lot of where they're going is based upon their own state. And what I mean by their state is a state in which they function in. So partners really, a lot of the time, they're under a lot of pressure, right? We know that delivery pressure, pipeline pressure, like all of that pressure, mm-hmm. right? And what tends to happen is when you're working under that level of pressure, you tend to make very short-term decisions. If you remember the last time you were under stress, mm-hmm. it's very difficult to make long-term decisions when you're under stress. And the reason that happens is because there's two parts of our mind, or three parts of our mind. We've got the back part of the brain, which is called the amygdala, and that part is the fear center of the brain, and that's going to light up. And whenever you're stressed, whenever you're anxious, whenever you're worried, like that part of the brain takes over. There's times of your life when you just felt fully alive. You can make really amazing decisions which are going to drive your life forward. That's really comes from the front part of your brain, which is called the prefrontal cortex. And that part, the more that we can have that switched on, and we have techniques to be able to make sure that that part is switched on the most, those parts are going to allow us to be able to get out of our comfort zone as an organization and step into the zones we want to get into. Then there's a third part of your brain, which we refer to a lot, which is called the basal ganglia. What the basal ganglia is that's where our habits are kept. Our identity is kept. So when you look at any partner right now, they do what they do because of the habits that they have, right? The identity they have. What we really want to do is create a whole different identity, which means that the basal ganglia has to kind of format, and we have a whole new programming which goes in. So when we have a look at partners, for example, when they're really stressed up and they're working the way that they're working right now in total delivery mode a lot of the decisions they make are short-term decisions, which aren't driving the firm forward. So what we want to do is be able to help them to be able to reutilize the way they're thinking, the way they're handling everything, okay? The way they're making decisions, number one. Number two, a lot of partners also, there's a story we have. We all have a story about ourselves, and that's how we play our lives. And that story could be that I'm the senior partner, for example. I have a certain amount of work to do. I'm the person who brings in all this work, and that's all about you. Until we change that story, and until we don't allow you to realize, hold on, you're the conduit. Like, your role now is to really build bench, is to coach, is to empower, is to teach. Yeah, obviously there's a certain amount of work you have to do yourself, but it's also about that. And then once you've done that, to actually really, really help them to be able to build up that culture within the organization as well. Because especially when it comes to decision making, right, that a lot of the times we're holding on to decisions a lot. One of the best things that we really can do is empower them to be able to make those decisions. Yeah, because otherwise, the firm's really built on senior partners. But what about the bench? And so that's what we're really looking at. So they're the trends that we're seeing right now, that big mindset shift about going from it's about me to now it's about more than me. It's about systems, it's about capability, and it's about creating an environment where other people can now flourish. So it's not dependent on us partners anymore, but it's dependent on the new partners or the directors who are coming through.
Yeah, and then a big enabler for that is obviously with the the resourcing kind of scenario in terms of UK, Ireland and further afield. I think you get the pushback a delegation, obviously from the top down, gets delegated partner level down, and then to free up that capacity of that kind of more junior kind of manager level, they then need to hand it off. But there's a big capacity issue which we see, which is where obviously the likes of ourselves and DOT come into play, where we then support said firms predominantly in the accountancy arena. So we become a big enabler. Given the mindset shift, we then see the knock-on effect, and then we become an enabler for said capacity. So it's so yeah, I see it from the kind of other side also.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two parts, right? We've got the capability part and the capacity part, and both have to work together. So I guess that's where you come in with the capacity part, to be able to make sure the capacity is there to be able to enable the capability.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's in terms of kind of the pain point, or not the pain points, but the hurdles, is it completely hinged on the delegation element, but there's a massive control element there as well. Obviously, look, a firm's client base, it's, accountants are the trusted advisors, probably more trusted than, say, the husband or wife in their relationship. So to then bring in an external party, albeit an extension of the firm, in ourselves, in DOT, there's a massive trust issue. So I think in order to bridge that gap and that trust gap, you need to have someone in that partnership level who is able to make those decisions, because it's commercially benefiting, not just them, the client base as well, but ultimately resourcing. They want to win work ultimately at the moment, very much in the UK. They can't do that. They've had to turn the tap off because they simply don't have the resource to bring the work on and get the work out the door, regardless of service line. but more highlighted in audit, which obviously you mentioned, and your white paper on that. So in order for these firms to achieve their targets and their aspirations over the next sort of 3 to 5 years, what do they need to be doing? What does a great leadership kind of, or a great leader look like?
Great question. So everything is down to the decisions that we make. And one of the things that we really do with firms is really nail down how to be able to make great decisions. Let me explain why, right? So when any of you woke up this morning and you looked at your health, you looked at the money in your bank, you looked at your marriage, whatever that may be, and if whether you're happy or sad with it, it's not because of what you did today. It's because of what you did 6 months ago, and those habits now have turned up to life right now. Okay, so if you want the next 6 months to be different, your habits have to change from today. Your decision-making ability has to be able to change from today, right? So it's so important, the decisions we're making on a day-to-day basis, because if we make the wrong decision at the right time, everything's going to be in a totally different place. So with organizations, what we're looking at is like where do we really want to be 5 years from now? Okay, what would that really look like? Then let's start making decisions like that firm, not like the firm we are right now. I'll give you an example. If anyone's ever tried to lose weight before, what you say is I'm going to behave like the person who's already lost the weight, right? You're not waiting till you lose that weight to start making decisions like them. You make decisions like them from today, because you know if I eat like them, I drink like them, I sleep like them, then I'm going to become like them as well. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with any firm as well. That if we can really nail down where we want to be in 5 years' time, and we can create that identity of where it's going to be in 5 years' time, we need to start making decisions like that firm from today, not from the firm we are right now.
So in benchmarking in that example.
Yeah. Problem with that is it's very hard, because normally we make decisions based on gut. That I felt in my gut, it felt right. Leadership doesn't care about your feelings. It's not about your feelings now. It's about understanding that I'll never feel right to make those decisions, because you're not that firm yet. So you're making decisions based on a bigger firm than where you are right now. Those decisions are never going to feel right. Mm-hmm. So instead, if you could have a framework to make decisions, then life changes, because you're not relying on emotion anymore, but it's about logic. So we've got some great frameworks when it comes to decision making, but it's about that, about having a framework. So decision making isn't going to feel comfortable anymore. It's meant to feel uncomfortable. Say, for example, your firm is right now at 5 million, and you're like, you know what, in 5 years from now, we want to be at 10M, right? For example, let's look at a 10M, a 20M firm. Let's start making decisions like that firm from now. And it's not about decisions financially in that, but it's about decisions about how we act, the way we act, the way we behave. If you're a 20M firm, how do our partners behave? What would they do? Mm-hmm. What traits, behaviors, habits would they have? Let's bring them into the organization from today. Let's behave like that from today. When we can start behaving like a firm like that from today, those results come as well. But the problem is, a lot of the time we're making decisions based on who we are, not on where we want to be. Yeah, it's like, do you know when we were younger, or for us who've got kids, when our kids were really young, we always gave them clothes bigger than them. And they're like, Mom or Dad, why are you getting me a jumper which is so big? And what do we say? You grow into it.
Yeah.
Yep. Same as us, right? We're never meant to be ready for where we want to go. We've got to grow into it. So our decisions is what's going to allow us to be able to grow into there. So let's see where we are. Let's see where we want to go. And then within there, let's create what that identity looks like for the partners, for the individual people, and let's start living like that from today. And there's so much science. Like there's a big study done in 1979 called the counterclockwise study, which highlights the importance of behaving like the person you are from today, not waiting till you get there. And there's so much science we can bring into it, but in essence, that's what we really need to do.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it's funny you bring up the growing into clothes. Doesn't seem to be the case anymore. I think that's also a sort of generational change. It's very much more the fitted kind of garments, and if I'm less so responsible in decision making for our children's clothing, but there seem to be a lot more fitted than mine were back in the day, that I got hand-me-downs from my brother. So for those who are kind of wanting to start this review, assessment, kind of, what's the starting point for individuals in firms that are looking to make this change?
Okay. Within a firm, so I'll divide this into two parts. There's one general bit and there's one part which is about an individual.
Yeah.
So in a general bit, Google did a study called Project Aristotle. It was quite a few years ago, and what they looked at is what are the key factors you need to be able to build a high performing team. So they looked at all of their teams, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, right? They put them together and looked at what are the biggest ingredients you need to build a high performing team. Is it your CV? Is it where you've come from? Is it your past knowledge? And they found it's none of that. The top thing which allows you to be able to build a high performing team is psychological safety, right? Psychological safety meaning how much is your firm like a family? So do you know if your child came home and they said they failed their exams, you wouldn't boot them out of the house. You'd coach them up, right?
Yep.
You'd get them a tutor, you'd get them some help. You say, okay, do you know what? Okay, fine. Like, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again, right? Family environment.
Nurturing.
How can we get that nurturing feeling within an organization? So number one, to really ask yourselves within my organization, what's the psychological safety like? On a scale of 1 and 10, what's it like? And what I mean by that is how often can people put their hand up and say, it was my fault? Right? That they take accountability. Accountability isn't shifted to someone else.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, it was my fault. Because, you know, when you say it's my fault, other people go, but I could have done something to help you, right? So how many people can genuinely come and, number one, ask for help? I don't understand that. Can you teach me? Or number two, I failed. How many people can really, really be themselves? So that's the first thing within any organization, to really ask yourself. And so that's the most important layer, that whenever we look at any organization, that we go in and say, look, let's build this. Let's build a culture where people can feel safe to stand up and say it was my fault, where they can say, or I can't do this, or I need help on this, or I'm worried about this, and they know their job's not going to be on the line. Most people say, well, do you know what? No one's job's on the line. But yeah, it's easy to say that, but internally, subconsciously, our biggest fear is that, number one, if you look at it, especially in the AI world we're living right now, we want our people to do something new. Right?
Yep.
So when you do something new, you're outside of your comfort zone. And because it's new, you've never done it before. Because you've never done it before, you're never going to be great at it. Because you're not going to be great at it to start with, you probably fail. You probably will fail. And when you fail at it, if you're worried that my job's on the line, you'll never do the thing that we're asking you to do.
Yeah, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
100%. Yeah. So it's a psychological safety. So that's the first thing. When you look at organization wide, building up that safety net where people can go, oh, I feel safe. It's like a family, right? So, and how do leaders build that up? So imagine that, so there's something we have called the leadership quadrant. Imagine you had a graph, and on the x-axis, you've got relationships. Relationships meaning, what's your relationship like with the team? Okay, so culture. And on the y-axis, you've got results.
Yep.
So, further up you go, the better results you're getting, right? So when we look at culture, for example, it was a CEO of Pepsi. What she said is that she goes, there's 20,000 people within my organization. I know each and every one person by name. Imagine every person by name. I know their kids' names. I know their spouses' names. And she also wrote a letter to most of her workers' parents, thanking them for bringing up kids like that, because now they're working with them like that. And she said, look, I know that when I step into a place of authority, I become a partner, become CEO, whatever it may be, there's going to be challenges. But the more I can get to know people, the easier those challenges. It doesn't mean there won't be challenges, it just means the least friction there's going to be, right? So when we look at this scale, you've got relationships, and then over here you've got results. So initially, where you've got poor relationships and poor results, that first quadrant, that's the job zone. Job zone meaning that we don't know much about our team. So for example, if you're a partner, a director, whatever you're doing, how well do you know your team? Do you know do you call them by name? Do you know their spouse's name, their kid's name? When they come in on a Monday, can you ask, how was Jack's football match? Because when you say that, because people don't move to another firm normally because they get paid more. It's because they know for two things. Number one, they'll feel more like family over there. And number two, there's more growth there. That's why people move. It's not because of money. Money's the third thing, right? Number one is culture. Number two is growth. Number three is money, right? So that first zone is the job zone, where people come in, they do the minimum they have to do, come when they have to, leave as soon as they can, the job zone. They don't do any more than that. Why? Because relationships are poor and results become poor as well. Then you've got zone 2, where relationships are poor, but we've got high results. We're expecting high results. We call that the fire zone. The fire zone meaning there's a lot of churn in that place. Yeah, because we're expecting people to do really well, but we as leaders, we don't know much about them. The relationships aren't great. Then we've got that third zone over here, where the relationships are high, but the results are poor. And what that is people within your team will go, he's a great boss, she's a great boss, whatever. But you're like, well, why don't you get me the results? And the reason is that zone is called the friend zone. And what over there, you're treating that person like a friend more than anything, i.e., difficult conversations aren't had early on. People aren't held to account about things they haven't done. And within organizations, what we found the most at senior level is people find it very difficult to have tough conversations.
Yeah, the lines are then blurred.
Yeah, it's brushed under the carpet. It's like over time it gets better. And we know nothing's ever got better over time, right? Right. If anything, you got to pick it up later, and there's interest added to that conversation as well. So it's like that. And then the fourth zone over here is the end zone, which is where we want to get to. We've got great relationships, and then we've got great results as well. So whenever we look at organizations, two things: look at the organization as a whole, psychological safety, and then number two, look at the individual. Where are you on that scale? Zone 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's a lot more we can talk about, but those two, from what you asked right now, I feel they're the two biggest things that we can look at on how we can develop into that version we need to be.
Well, it shows obviously you've got a good memory, because my son's name is Jack. So well
Awesome.
done, but well done for remembering that. So when talking to firms, either that you've worked with or more recently, or say firms that you just generally speak with, what seems to be the trend in where they sit within that quadrant? Where do you see the biggest sort of number sitting into those four?
So great question. Most of the firms, like early on, everyone's going to say we're in 4. But once you've spent a little bit of time with people, and once you can get their walls down and their guards down, most people tell you we're a lot in the fire zone, so zone 2, and a lot in the friend zone, right? That's the two places where people really tend to be. And we're like, okay, that's cool. What we now need to do is let's get you into the end zone. But you can't get there too quickly, because if you go from the friend zone to the end zone too quickly, it looks like you've gone into the fire zone, right? Because imagine like one day you come and say, okay, fine, I'm going to have different conversations. We're going to hold you to your KPIs. Like, it's just too much, right? So it's a gradual process, and how to be able to get people to be able to start doing that. So yeah, a lot of people will sit there. But the great thing about, and this is, so people only work with us, people who are doing well, and they want to do better. Right. So all the firms we work with, and we're talking from, some of the, $1 billion firms up to, the mid-tier firms, low firms. The thing which I love about all these firms is they all know that there's another level. Yeah. And people say, next level. What next level? It means that we all understand that there's a next level of us. Yeah. And it's a level where if we can unlock that as a team, not as an individual, but as a team, the business changes completely. And so it's that. Where everyone understands that, like, I want to have the Navy SEALs equivalent of my team.
Elite.
Yeah, that's what I want. How do I create that elite team? And people are hungry for that. And these days, I feel that people are willing to change more than ever, that they understand that it's about their unlocks. And if we can unlock them, it'll unlock a lot. And if you can unlock everyone, the net effect of a team working together is so much more than, an individual working in their silo and doing more.
It's very interesting. It's finding out the right keys for the right individuals, and then ultimately, over a general kind of sense, it's what works for the company or the firm as well. Very interesting. So, for any of the viewers who are in a firm and looking to embark on this journey and make those types of changes, how can they know more? How can they start the journey?
So, great question. We'd love to be able to speak to you, because if we do speak to you, I guess you're the type of person, you're the kind of firm who really, really wants to grow. Best way is LinkedIn, either under Brilliant Beyond Belief, or go to my name, Mahmood Mawjee, connect on there, send us a message. What I feel would be great, or there's Instagram, website, brilliantbeyondbelief.com. Send us a message. We'd be really happy to send you our white paper. And our white paper is all about how to be able to really adapt this within an organization. So we're happy to send you a paper copy, a hard copy, digital copy. But just send us a message on any of the ways. It's all picked up, and then we'll get that to you. And it'll be great to discuss things over coffee. Yeah.
And we'll also provide in the kind of below the video, we'll provide some details so that it's all linked in there. But no, I want to thank you very much for a very insightful talk. Obviously, I was aware of yourselves, of the team, prior to this, hence the webinar podcast conversation. And I know that you're working with a number of firms in the UK market that I know. So yeah, continue to do the good work, sir.
Thank you very much.
And thank you to the viewers for coming in and listening to myself, little so much, but more so Mahmood. And you'll have the links to connect with him and reach out to his team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.